All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Sunday, March 30th. We have a pretty full MLB slate to dive into in today's video, like we always do. I'm going to dive into each and every one of these games. I'm going to give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player props that we like within the game as well. But as always, guys, keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That'll take you to all of my final plays, so I'm actually rolling with myself. If that does interest you, absolutely free down in the pinned comment. All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. I tell you guys I'm a dummy all the time. They don't suck. They've just been sucking. Get them down to -3 for more juice than Jose Canseco in his prime. Tell me you're new without telling me you're new. So don't go jumping down my throat in the comments, right? If you want to fade me, or if you do want to ride me, this still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, right? And remember, more chins, more wins. In terms of yesterday, a pretty good MLB day there. We go 4-1. Though our winners were on the juicier end, the Red Sox money line being the only one that we don't pull out there at +102. It was our plus money play. But Twins Cards under in the first 5, that cashes. Athletics and Mariners in the first 5, that cashes. Phillies money line cashes, and then Ian Happ under 1.5 bases cashes as well. So a 4-1 night. Like I said, little juicy, but we'll still take the 4-1 night overall. Off to a decent start in this MLB season, so very excited about that. Like I said, big slate to dive into today, guys. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. And what do you say we go ahead and dive into game number 1 here? We have New York taking on Milwaukee. So this game ended with pretty much like a football score yesterday, 20-9. And Max Fried didn't even look spectacular, but Nestor Cortez, yikes. The beginning of that game, that womp womp is for you, Nestor Cortez there. 3 pitches, 3 home runs. Aaron Judge ended up with, 3 home runs. They got off quick, and they just kept scoring runs. So, yeah, this is a tough spot for me because I'd look at this and say, I don't think Marcus Stroman, who's on the mound for the Yankees today, going up against Aaron Savali, I don't think Marcus Stroman is in the best of situations. I mean, didn't have the best season last year. We know that. But he's going to throw a ton of sinkers, a ton of sliders. Then he moves on to the curveball. These are all pitches that the Brewers just a year ago, those are 3 of their favorite pitches to hit against the sinker. 6th in terms of runs above average. Slider 3rd in terms of runs above average. Curveball 5th in terms of runs above average. So I think the Brewers do score a decent amount of runs today. And the offense kind of got going yesterday. Right now, maybe the Yankees took their feet off the gas because they were up by 1,000,000 runs, but the Brewers still scored 9 respectively, right? So I think I look at a potential spot for Brewers +118, kind of trusting Aaron Savali. Do I love that spot? Not necessarily, but he has okay numbers against this Yankees roster in his career. Only 42 plate appearances against, a expected batting average against of 248, and an expected WOBA of 316. So not all that terrible, right? We have Marcus Stroman, who also has some good numbers against the Brewers roster. The Brewers roster. So that kind of worries me a little bit. But again, that pitch mix is too much for me to ignore. I'm going to lean towards Milwaukee as well as the over in this one. But on the player prop side of things, Marcus Stroman over 4.5 hits. You're getting decent value for that right now. You could see this over on the outlier screen. Guys, if you want access to the best MLB player prop research tool, the spot with the most data, and a one-stop shop for all of your player prop research, check out Outlier. Link in the description. 7 days free. Link in the description. You get a 7-day free trial. But look at Marcus Stroman. These are his recent starts, right? Head-to-head against the Brewers. Last time out, 6 hits allowed through just 4 innings pitched. My one concern is if they say, hey, well, he's stinking it up, do they yank him quickly, right? We only even saw 4 and some change from Fried yesterday. But yeah, I really don't think this is a great pitch mix. Again, he's going to throw the sinker. Look at all the greens. Everybody right now listed on the roster, their K rate drops and their WOBA goes up. The slider, you're going to see some more red. The cutter, you'll see some more red, but the splitter, you'll also see a little bit more red. But that sinker is his main pitch overall, and they do hit that very, very well. Over here, you can see we do have some, like I said, the guys on the roster, we have some mixed results. But against righties, some things look okay. So I think this could be a good spot. Stroman over 4.5 hits allowed here. I looked at his Ks and I was thinking about his under, but it's only at 3.5. So that's a little, dicey overall. This is a team to close out last year, pretty easy strikeouts in terms of against right-handed pitchers. So I think I would look at that hits allowed instead of taking an under for Stroman here. But it kind of just aligns with the Milwaukee play as well, right? So the things that I would consider would be Milwaukee money line, maybe a Milwaukee first five money line, but I'm a little worried about Aaron Savale, as well as the over, because I do think this Yankees offense is obviously hot, so we can't forget about them, but then potentially taking a peek at something, like Stroman over 4.5 hits. All right, Washington taking on Philly. I feel like these games have gone similar, right? It's like Washington gets out to a lead, then Philly ties it up, and then they just kind of run away with it. That's what happened yesterday, and now we have Aaron Nola on the mound going up against Mitchell Parker. Sure, Mitchell Parker has had some, bright spots, but I still do think that this Phillies offense, now especially against a left-handed pitcher like Parker, this should be another great spot for them. He's going to throw the fastball, the splitter, and the curve. The curve's the only one that kind of concerns me, but the curve's going to make up about 20% of his pitches overall. On the other side of things, you have Aaron Nola, who's going to throw, obviously, that knuckle curve. He throws some fastballs as well, but I'm not worried about this Washington offense, right? Like, both games, they've got off to a decent start, and then you just don't really see it. And again, they were up, 2-0, and then Philly pulled away with it. You look at that final score and say, 11-6, Washington put up some numbers. They did, but they scored 3 runs in the 8th and 9th inning. They scored, I think it was, 4 runs since the 6th inning in. So Philadelphia did their job in terms of, starting pitcher yesterday and everything like that. And when you have a big lead, I don't think it's all that crazy to say, okay, well, let's take our foot off the gas. Like we talked about with the Yankees, right? Some sort of ancillary runs come in. So I think if you're going to keep giving me Philadelphia at these odds, it's -142 today. I'll roll with it. Now, do I like the idea of, early sweep like this? No, it's really hard to sweep a team in the MLB, especially when you're on the road. But I do think Philadelphia is just in all facets better than this Washington team overall. In terms of Philadelphia's bullpen here, obviously they've used a few guys, but looks like even no one's really gone back to back, obviously, right? And even the guys that have pitched a decent amount, they should be able to have a few guys coming out of there. Their closers that they have, late inning guys and whatnot. So I'm not all that concerned about that. Washington's bullpen's kind of in the same situation, so even that would be a moot point for me. And then no major player props as of right now, but this is definitely a game in which I'd be targeting some of these Philly bats against lefties. So keep an eye on the pinned comment taking you to the final plays. If we add anything, I'll kind of explain why in the final plays, just so you guys at least have a little bit of context. In terms of a total, Philly team total over is what I would consider here. I don't think we're going to get a good number for it, but I just trust this offense right now. 7 runs in game 1, 11 runs in game 2. Again, I'll be honest, my little concern here would be the fact that, it's first series of the season. Are they really going to go out there and sweep a team, especially on the road? Are they going to do this, a few games in a row? All that kind of is up in the air, I'll be honest. But, if you put it in a vacuum and forget that this is the third game of a 3-game series, that they're on the road and all that, I think that we could see another offensive performance out of Philly. All right, Toronto taking on Baltimore here. Toronto -130 there on their side in terms of the odds. Baltimore with Sagano on the mound going up against Chris Bassett. I would say I don't have much about Sagano to go off of right now. It is a Tomoyuki Sagano, right? I think he looked in the spring here. Overall, I would say that Bassett, obviously we have a little bit more on him, but to me, this is such a weird series, and I've kind of said that all along, right? It's like these two teams I do think are somewhat competitive and somewhat similar, and the first 2 games kind of looked like that, and then yesterday was a little bit more, obviously even keeled. It was a 9-4, 9-5 win for Baltimore. The way that I've seen these two teams play is now, especially with what I would consider is Bassett on the mound, someone that I don't really want to trust, but almost feel like I have to here. I would say that this is the type of series that gets evened out. So yeah, even though that's a big price tag for Toronto, -130, I've seen enough out of their offense. I think that the offense has kept them in it, obviously, and you could say the same thing about Baltimore. So I'm going to lean towards Toronto in the over, but this feels like a very big dice roll. 1, with the pitcher data over on Baltimore side of things. 2, you could say Chris Bassett, really isn't all that great, and I agree. The one thing I will say in favor of him is he throws the sinker. That's his main pitch. It's like one of the few pitches that Baltimore hasn't hit and didn't hit a year ago very, very well. So, yeah, I think this could be a decent spot for, Toronto to squeak it out. I would say the over doesn't necessarily correlate to a Toronto money line, but again, based on what we've seen, the bats have been hot in this series. So I'll lean Toronto and the over, but again, this kind of seems like a dice roll dice roll game, excuse me. Let me know what you guys think of this one in the comments, because it is kind of a weird one, right? Real quick, before we talk more baseball, let me talk to you about basketball for a hot second here, because Sleeper has a pick on sale. They've knocked Kevin Durant's line down to 0.5 for all of the new users out there. It's also Sunday. They do happen to do a lot of surprise promos over on Sunday. I'm not saying they're definitely doing it. I don't have any inside information, but they do happen to do a lot of Sunday discounts throughout the year, definitely during the NFL season and MLB season as well. So go ahead and check out Sleeper, guys. Those deals that I just talked about in the promos and even the Durant 0.5 points is not even the best thing going on right now. I've been talking to you about this for so long, and I'm surprised they're still doing it. The play $5, get $55 deal. All you have to do as a new customer is place a $5 lineup. You are then going to get 11 free $5 lineups after that. Check out the link in the description as well as the pinned comment, or download the Sleeper Picks app and use code GuyBoston. This is one of, if not my favorite, DFS player prop app out there, because one, they have the dynamic payouts, which is really cool. They don't follow a fixed payout structure, right? But they have alternate lines. They have pretty much every line that's available on sportsbooks available on their app. They don't remove plays or anything like that. So go ahead and check it out. That link will be down below in the description as well as the pinned comment. Go get that Durant Square. Go get the play 5, get 55. Seriously, you should be racing to take advantage of this, because I don't know how much longer they're going to offer that for. But that's enough basketball talk. Let's jump back into these games here. All right, Tampa Bay taking on Colorado. At least what seems to be two of the worst offenses so far to start the year. Now, we're only a couple games in. Obviously, we have like the White Sox and Angels games too, so there's some competition. But man, a 3-2 game in night one, and then, or I guess night two of the MLB, right? And then a 2-1 game yesterday. Tampa Bay loses that one, and it really wasn't because of Littell, right? Like, it wasn't because of any pitching. Like, 2-1, the Tampa Bay offense just stinks, and that really doesn't surprise me. Even dating back to last year, like, that offense really wasn't all that great. Colorado in the same boat here. This is a tough one to really get confident about an under in. But I do think that it could be a spot for an under, but I'm almost thinking about a first 5 under, or just pivoting to a Colorado team total under, because at the end of the day, we do have obviously a couple decent bats at the start of that lineup, but I don't think that they really have like the power outside of Coors, right? Like when they're playing in Tampa Bay and not in elevation and whatnot, I don't really see where this lineup does really well. And what I will give Taj Bradley, who's pitching for Tampa Bay today, credit on is that even just a year ago, like he was a completely different pitcher when at home. They're at home today. Their pitching obviously has looked good, right? So I don't want to sit here and say this is going to be a spot to lean towards Colorado. They could win the game. In fact, with the odds, sure, I'd consider Colorado, because minus 200 for Tampa Bay, and that offense is absolutely crazy. But again, my main spot here is probably either going to be an under, a first 5 under, or a Colorado team total under. All three of those are definitely viable options here today. But again, if I had to pick a side, I almost would say, hey, let's roll the dice with Ryan Feltner, because, you're getting the odds of, like, I would say because both these this is a better way of putting it. Allow me to be concise instead of rambling like every other day of the year. Because these offenses are so bad, I think that brings this game a little bit closer to 50-50 than some people might think. And if you have a 50-50 spot, right, even if it's like a 55-45 spot, minus 200 on one side doesn't make all that much sense, but you're getting plus 170 on the other side. Starts to make a little bit more sense and may even be worth the dice roll, right? I'm not looking to roll dice. That would be what I would do if I had to. I think the under is more of a viable option for me today overall, because I do think this Rays lineup at some point, they can have some power, and Ryan Feltner isn't something that I want to really fully trust, right? Like, I don't think the Rays are going to be a consistent offense, but I do think that, some of those guys could have some pop in them, as if Ryan Feltner just leaves something over the plate. So, yeah, I'll lean towards those variations of unders. All right, Cincinnati taking on San Fran. This one's going to come down to, I guess, the odds for me overall, because I do think, again, we just talked about 50-50 baseball. I think that this is kind of in a similar boat to that. What I would say about this one, you have Robbie Ray on the mound for San Fran going up against Nick Martinez for Cincinnati. Both of these guys obviously have had their, even recently, like ups and downs, so I don't really want to put too much weight into the pitching here, what I would start to look at would be the offense, and we're going to get a ton of pitches from Nick Martinez, fastball, change, cutter, all that. San Fran's offense isn't all that great. Neither is Cincinnati against left-handed pitchers, which Robbie Ray is a lefty. That said, he throws a ton of fastballs. His off-speed would end up being the slider, which, that's the pitch to get them out on. But a ton of fastballs, that is where Cincinnati can get you. So if this was plus 100 San Fran, I'd probably be on San Fran because I think this is a very fairly even matchup, and we've even seen that to start the year, right? 6-4 game, which both teams had leads in that one, and 6-4 game in favor of San Fran. Cincinnati yesterday ends up winning 3-2 in a low-scoring game. I would say that this is, again, Cincinnati should be able to hit that fastball. Nick Martinez can be all over the place. It's at Great American Ballpark. I would say this is most likely an over spot for me as well, just because it is that ballpark. I don't love the offenses today, but I also don't think the pitching is in the best spot. Like I mentioned, Nick Martinez, ups and downs. Robbie Ray, his main pitch, Cincinnati should be able to hit, even though he's a lefty. So I'm going to look at the over as well as Cincinnati here. In terms of player props, we did have one. Let's see if we can pull that one back up so I can let you guys know what I was thinking. Yeah, okay. So this is definitely a spot in which one swing of the bat could kind of kill us here. But Willy Adames now on San Fran, obviously. I like his spot here for an under 2.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. He isn't one of the guys that I would say fits this pitch mix all that well. Fastball being the number one pitch for Martinez. He doesn't hit the fastball tremendously. The changeup he does, that's the next pitch, but then the cutter he doesn't hit all that well. The sinker he hits okay, but then the curve he doesn't hit all that well. So it's really a mixed bag in terms of what he'll see and what he hits well. And we're asking for a lot of hits, runs, and RBIs. I wouldn't like this that much at 1.5, right? But right now, sitting at 2.5, I think that we could look at an under. Also, on the other side of things, speaking of pitch mix and whatnot, I think that we could look at Spencer Steer. His strikeout rate jumps 4 percentage points against the fastball. The slider as well, it jumps. I like his under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs as well. So two hits, runs, and RBIs, one on each team, two guys that I do like. The problem with those is a guy goes out there and hits a double, and there's a guy on second, all of a sudden that's a hit. That's an RBI, and tough to see, you know what I mean? But again, I think both these guys, I talked about how the offenses could have decent games. I like the over. Those two particularly, I don't think fit the pitch mix all that well. So yeah, Spencer Steer and Willy Adames, both of them under hits, runs, and RBIs. My favorite series of them all. We've been talking about this since opening day. Miami taking on Pittsburgh. Right now, Miami leads the series 2-1, which is surprising and isn't surprising, I guess, all at the same time. I'm sure the game that Skeens pitched in, Pittsburgh was looking for a win in that one. He kind of outpitched Alcantara too, but nonetheless, they end up losing. Today you got Max Meyer on the mound going up against Andrew Heaney. Your guess is as good as mine in this one. The one thing that I'm going to say here is that we're going to see a lot of fastballs from both of these pitchers. The slider actually being Meyer's main pitch, which is, I guess, unfortunate because Pittsburgh doesn't hit that well. But Heaney's going to throw a bunch of fastballs. Miami stinks at hitting the fastball. I think that these two teams are deadlocked right now. And the fact that Miami's up 2-1, I see this one being a 2-2 finish to this series overall. Pittsburgh gets to go home and play tomorrow. They're taking on the Mets, which isn't exactly, the easiest of matchups, right? So I anticipate Pittsburgh trying to get a win in this one. Again, you have Heaney going up against Meyer. With that, I guess anything could happen. Both these guys, have shown decent spots, especially Meyer, right? He's got a lot of talent, but I'm not exactly sure if it always clicks. So you're playing with fire in this series. I've been saying that since opening day. I'm going to lean towards Pittsburgh in this one. In terms of what we have from a total, kind of, again, I know you guys hate it, but you're playing with fire. I would lean towards an under, but that's just because I don't believe in either offense today. No player props in this one either. I want to get as far away from this series as possible. Get as far away from that series as possible and run right to the next best thing here. We have the Angels taking on the White Sox. White Sox won game number 1. Angels come back or not even come back. What was that? What was that? That was a 1-0 game yesterday, right? Angels win that one. So for another series that we have not touched and don't really want to, we've called it perfectly. We had White Sox game number 1, right? For what were they, plus 150 or something? And then yesterday I was like, the Angels probably do end up bouncing back. You have Kekanovic on the mound for the Angels going up against Davis Martin. I hate to do it to you guys 2 games in a row, but I think everyone can understand where I'm coming from here. This is another series in which you're kind of rolling the dice, right? Like two pitchers that I wouldn't really trust as far as I could throw them, two offenses that absolutely stink. I would probably lean towards a first five under. My one concern is that, the pitching isn't great. So even though the bats stink, we just saw 1-0. Like, do we kind of return to we saw an 8-1 game. So Chicago's offense looked okay in game number 1. And then it was, 1-0 in game number 2. Is this the game where we get like a 4-3 game through 5 innings? And it's like, yeah, that's probably what the final score is, but we get screwed in the first 5. I'm going to lean towards under as well as the first 5 under, just because I don't necessarily know what we can get out of both these bullpens. The Angels bullpen a year ago wasn't all that bad. Chicago's stunk though. So I don't really want to go full game under, because we could see some late runs. Not that we did yesterday, but the first game of the series for both these two teams, opening day for them, they scored 6 runs after the 7th inning in the game, and the final score was 8-1. So first 5, you would have looked okay. You let the bullpens get involved there, even when they were at full strength, and boom, done, right? So I think I'd look at first 5 under. In terms of where I'd go, I'd probably say give me the plus money here again. I could easily see this being a Chicago game, then an Angels game, then a Chicago game. Both these teams pretty bad. I think we spent even too much time on this one, because I don't know if I actually touch it in terms of actually betting it myself. Kansas City taking on Cleveland. I think I want to start with a potential total play in this one. I like both pitchers. You have Tanner Bybee on the mound for this Cleveland team, and he's going up against Michael Wacha. I think what I would start with is potentially trusting both those guys and taking a peek at a under 4.5 for the first 5. Michael Wacha and Tanner Bybee both have very good numbers here. We'll start with Tanner Bybee. 107 plate appearances against the guys on the current Kansas City roster. He's got an average against of 194. That does jump up to a 226 in terms of expected batting average. He's got an expected slugging of just 328, expected WOBA of 300 flat. On the other side of things, Michael Wacha, 83 plate appearances against, 233 average against, just an expected batting average against of 251, an expected WOBA of 311. So both these guys, I think, can do their job overall, and we've seen one game in this series go under in the first 5, one game go over. I like both pitchers here in this spot. So first 5 under 4.5, and again, we're paying minus 155 right now. Hopefully we can get that. We have not placed it ourselves. Hopefully we don't miss any value here. But what I'll say about this is that total at 7.5, the fact that we can get the first 5 innings, which is more than half the game, at 5 runs as the maximum type of thing to break, you know what I mean? Makes a little bit of sense to me in terms of why that is minus 155 and how confident I could be in that play, right? So yeah, I'm going to lean towards that first 5 under. In terms of where I'd go from a side perspective, I like Kansas City here, but I do think Bybee's going to pitch fairly well, but I think we're getting some decent value for Kansas City at home. I'm not going to say the pitch mix looks all that great or anything like that, but Michael Wacha at home a year ago was pretty good, and I do believe that this, Kansas City lineup, at least, 1 through 7, has a little bit more pop than Cleveland, who I would kind of put them at more of like a 1 through 4, 1 through 5 type of a lineup, right? So yeah, I'm gonna lean towards Kansas City, but I do like that under a little bit more. I just think Kansas City can score the runs when they need to, whereas we may not see that out of this Cleveland team. So yeah, I think that's going to be the direction I lean in. Player prop, we did have one. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Stephen Kwan wasn't a terrible look for me. I have 2 player props here, actually. So Stephen Kwan, I kind of like the idea of his over hits, runs, and RBIs. He's been crushing it. He has decent numbers against Michael Wacha. The changeup being the number 1 pitcher, Kwan hits the changeup fairly well, but the fastball being the next one he hits really, really well. Salvador Perez being the other one. I like his under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. Getting decent odds for both of these. Perez against righties, everything drops for him, and then Bybee against righties, everything looks better for him. I will say Perez's WOBA jumps against right-handed pitchers, but his strikeout rate jumps as well. The cutter, good pitch. His WOBA drops down to 246 from 340 overall. And then the changeup being a pitch that he does hit well. But between the fastball and cutter, I do think are 2 decent pitches. So Perez, under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. And then Stephen Kwan, considering over 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. He's been crushing it to start the year. So I'm a little concerned of that. He's had 4 hits, runs, and RBIs in both games so far this year. He had a home run yesterday. So is it time for him to cool off? Perhaps. St. Louis taking on Minnesota here in terms of the pitching. In this one, we have Bailey Ober on the mound for Minnesota going up against Andre Payante for this St. Louis team. We did cash the first 5 under in this one yesterday, and that's also something that I'm slightly considering again today. I don't believe in either one of these offenses, even though some of the numbers last year would look good, and some of the individual players versus righties, which both these pitchers being righties today, look good. Payante, I think, can hang in there. He's going to throw a lot of fastballs. Minnesota does hit fastballs well, but if he goes to his next pitches being the sinker, the knuckle curve, the slider, I feel a little bit more confident there. From a Bailey Ober perspective, he's going to throw fastball cutter. That's going to make up over 50% of his pitches. St. Louis fastball, 27th in terms of runs above average last year. Cutter, 25th. If he does go to the changeup, which would be his next pitch, they do hit that fairly well. But again, we've seen, both of these teams, so far for, a couple games, and I haven't really been impressed with both offenses. I mean, 5-3 in game number 1, and they killed their first 5 under in the 5th inning. That was looking good. And then the next game, we cashed it, right? It ended up being a 5-1 game, still very low scoring, but it was only like 1-1 after 5 innings, and they scored late. I think there's something similar a brewing today. So, yeah, I'll lean towards the first 5 under. In terms of where I'd go on a side, I have to trust Bailey Ober. I think he's the better pitcher out of these two. If you look at, his numbers against this St. Louis roster, we don't have much to go off of, but they're a little bit scary, but again, super, super minimal. But Andre Payante kind of looks good, but his numbers are very minimal as well. So we'll see what we get from either one of these pitchers. I'm making these claims of, under first 5 and that type of thing, more so based on the offenses overall. Texas taking on Boston. It is really hard for me to get to the Red Sox today. I mean, they burned us yesterday. They actually burned us 2 days in a row. We cashed, the team total over night 1 or day 1. Then we lose it. Then we lost the money line. I would say that, DeGrom versus Dick Fitz, that's the pitching matchup today, obviously is a mismatch. We'll see what we get out of DeGrom, but I mean, you're crazy if you're going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, we like Richard Fitz, Dick Fitz over him. I do think the Red Sox, their offense isn't in the worst spot here. You have a lot of guys that hit righties well, fastball, slider, 2 pitches that they hit well. So it's not like DeGrom's in this ready to go and shove it type of situation, but he does have 27 plate appearances against current guys on the roster here, and his numbers are pretty damn good. 30% K rate here, just a 3.7 walk rate. Again, small sample size, but just walk with me here. An average against of 192, a WOBA against of 228, slugging of just 328. So it is tough to sit here and be like, I think that, the Red Sox can get to DeGrom, but I do think that they can compete. But it's hard for me to get to them knowing that there's such a pitching mismatch. So maybe we could lean towards, Red Sox on the run line at +1.5. You're getting some decent value there at minus what? I think we got -1, or I think we saw -125 or something, which I honestly don't necessarily mind that. I think that, again, they can stay in this game. And this is kind of based on me still not really fully trusting Texas's offense. Like, Texas has won 2 straight games now with 4 runs scored. It's not like they went out there and went crazy. We just have seen the Red Sox slow to score. I mean, night 1, yes, they scored 5 runs, but that's why I would consider Red Sox +1.5. This is not a biased play or anything. I just think DeGrom can go out there and shove, but I'm not sold that Texas is going to light up Dick Fitz. I just don't like the idea of, gambling on, it really is a gamble on the Red Sox money line. So maybe them on the run line. If Texas was like minus this, let me make it clear too. If Texas was like -160, I'd just be leaning them on the money line. Like, I think Texas is the better team in the spot with the better pitcher. And if it's a low scoring game, then sure, DeGrom should be good. But at -185, I've seen -190s out there. A little bit too much juice to even be considering that. In terms of a total, I just talked about it. I think this could be an under type of game, a 4-3 win potentially for Texas, which is well under. So I'm going to lean in that direction. I also don't mind the idea of a Nerfy in this spot. Now, the scary part is, okay, yeah, I think DeGrom can go out there and get through the lineup. He does have to go through the tough part of the lineup, right? But from the Dick Fitz perspective, I don't really see Simeon, Seager, Langford, I think that he can get through that lineup. Those guys do hit righties fairly well, but pitch mix kind of checks out. I don't mind it. We've seen, these so far in 3 games, 2 of them go under. So it's I think that we could see a decent spot. And for what it's worth, last year, Dick Fitz, 4 straight Nerfies, right? On the other side of things, DeGrom, what we saw from him, a little bit more scary, but at home, he did cash his only Nerfie that he pitched at home. So Nerfy is in play here, as well as the under. Arizona taking on Chicago. Chicago's won 2 of these 3 matches so far, and we've kind of been all over the place in terms of scoring. Today we have Eduardo Rodriguez on the mound going up against Matthew Boyd. I think it's going to be a very close game. I'm going to lean towards the home team in Arizona because I like their offensive matchup better than I do the Cubs offense. Tons of fastballs from Boyd, tons of changeups as well. Even if he throws the slider, I'm not really afraid of any of that. Big thing here being that this is Matthew Boyd, who is a lefty. Last year, average WRC plus on base percentage, OPS, slugging. These are either ranked 1 or 2 for Arizona against lefties, and a ton of their guys in the lineup hit lefties very, very well. So I like Arizona today. Maybe a potential look at their team total over. That line being up at 9 is obviously a very, very high number, but that also tells me that they're not emphasizing pitching when making this line, right? Like this is a spot for a total. So I like their over, 3.5, 4.5, depending on the odds. I wouldn't play 4.5 unless we can get plus money behind it. If that's the case, I would just look at Arizona money line because I do think that they'll score a decent amount of runs today off of Matthew Boyd. Another spot that I considered, and it's obviously more of a player prop spot here, would be Matthew Boyd and his hits allowed. Let's get an updated line for you there. Matthew Boyd, let's see, hits allowed. Yeah, plus 104 for over 4.5. Why is it that? Because he has not been doing that, but this is, again, just a year ago. Let's look at them versus a left-handed pitcher. This is, again, outlier, link in the description. Number 1 in terms of average, batting average of balls in play, number 1, hard hit percentage, number 4. The fastball, a ton of these guys light up green. Changeup, still decent, right? The Woba, not so much, but they don't strike out. The slider, sure, you can get them, but that slider's only coming in 17.3% of the time, and then the sinker, a lot of green. So I do think that we could have a decent spot here. Arizona against Matthew Boyd, we have some good looks, some bad looks, but again, left-handed pitchers, we do have some of the bigger bats in the lineup here, looking pretty damn good in terms of being able to go out there and hit them. So yeah, I like the idea of his over, just because it's plus money too. These are the odds right now. If this were to be, minus 115 and stuff, I wouldn't necessarily consider it, but I kind of like the spot here for Arizona and their, just to get 5 hits through what we're probably going to get. I would say 5 innings. I would imagine out of Matthew Boyd today. So should be a decent look there for plus money. Keep an eye on the pinned comment, take you into the final place to see if we do ultimately roll with that. But yeah, Arizona team total over, player prop wise, Matthew Boyd over 4.5 hits allowed for plus money. All right, been waiting for this dude to start. We got the Mariners taking on the Athletics. Brian on the mound, taking on Oakland's JP Sears. I mean, you're paying a lot of juice for the Mariners, but like we've kind of said, it's probably the smart side. Did I say Oakland? The Athletics. They're not Oakland anymore. Now they've lost 2 straight games, which is weird. I think the Seattle Mariners tie this one up. They do have the better pitching, I would say. The offenses are fairly similar. This is another spot in which I'd probably get convinced of maybe a Nerfy or a first 5 under as well, just due to the fact that both these offenses are quite literally atrocious. But I do think Brian Wu kind of has what it takes today. He's going to throw a lot of fastballs, a lot of sinkers. He'll go to the slider as well, and then he has a changeup in his arsenal. None of those pitches scare me on the Oakland side of things, so I think I would look at either the first 5 under. You can go Nerfy again, but I feel like we're playing with fire at this point with Nerfy. But Athletics under, in terms of a team total, under right now, 3.5. That's probably a decent look, but I would also just say, hey, trust in Brian Rue here. Under 1.5 first 5 runs for Oakland, for the A's, for the Athletics. That's probably my main look in this one. But again, I don't mind Seattle. I think that they knot this one up. But it's hard to like Seattle and trust their bats. You know what I mean? And they didn't go out there and do too much to solve those issues, I guess, in the offseason. I mean, they tried, I guess, but still, you know what I mean? This is still a pitcher-dominant lineup, and they're going up against a bad offense here. The easy 2 + 2 = 4 would be good pitching, bad offense, take that team total under for the other team. And that's probably what I'm going to ultimately end up rolling with. San Diego taking on this Atlanta Braves team. We have Pivetta on the mound for San Diego going up against Smith Schuster for this Atlanta team. I do think that, we have one good offense, but I'm not necessarily I do trust Nick Pivetta. Throws a ton of fastballs, a decent amount of cutters. He'll go to the slider, the curve. I think Atlanta's offense could catch up to him. And like I kind of mentioned yesterday, San Diego, I was almost concerned with taking them yesterday because are they really going to go here and start the season off just crushing Atlanta? And they did. They won 1-0. Obviously, it was a decently pitched game, right? But are they going to go 4-game sweep Atlanta? That seems hard to do, right? So yeah, I think they have the pitching advantage. I think they have the offensive advantage. I'll lean towards San Diego, but honestly, the weird thing is the one thing that's keeping me off of actually pulling the trigger would be the fact that this would be 4 wins in order to start the season, sweeping another good ball club. Like, that seems hard to do to me. So the law of averages would say Atlanta gets theirs today, and they do have a plus money next to them. So just know that, just be careful, I think I would say. I will say that we do have Smith Scheuer being a very good pitcher against left-handers. That's Arias, Merrill, Cronenworth. But then, you get the bottom of the lineup in terms of San Diego lefties. You have Tatis, Machado, Bogarts, all righties, which they should have decent games today. On the other side of things, we do have Pivetta, who's really good against lefties. Profar will be a lefty today. Olsen, Michael Harris, lefty, I think. Ozzy Albiz, switch hitter, right? He'll be a lefty today. So Pivetta's probably in a decent spot there as well, just in terms of, the lefty-righty split. So another reason San Diego may look good, but I'm telling you, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I'm a little worried to go and say, hey, go win, 4 straight. 4-game sweep against a good team to start the season just seems a little crazy to me. In terms of what we have from a total here, I don't mind an under. I kind of gave credit to Pivetta there, right? I think San Diego has the better offense, but we really haven't seen like this crazy offense out of Atlanta yet. I mean, they've gone 4-3-0 runs. Do they bounce back today? Sure, but like I said, some of their decent bats, I don't think are in the best of situations, so I'm going to lean under 8.5 in this spot as well. But guys, it's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you made it this far in the video, go ahead and comment 36. You pretty much made it 36 minutes in, and I do appreciate you spending some time with me here on this Sunday. Make sure you guys hit that like button. You're hitting that subscribe button as well. We'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.